You know things are getting scary in Florida when even the Congress people are issuing dire warnings against buying a condo right now until all of these new condo laws get sorted out. The thing is, guys, I've given multiple warnings here on my channel already against some of the dangers that people are facing right now with potentially buying a condo, particularly in Florida, before these new laws take effect. Because if you buy after 2025 already happens and this new law supposedly is in effect by then, it should give you a little more transparency than if you're a buyer right now in 2024. However, when I read this story about even Congress people being skeptical of buying condos and kind of warning people against it, it leads me to believe that my prediction that I made about this will likely come true, which is that they will probably kick the can down the road when push comes to shove and we get closer to this deadline and make some sort of extension or exception for some buildings in order to have more time to comply. Because as we go through this story, you guys will see that people are just nowhere near ready for this. And these buildings are essentially falling off a financial cliff when it comes to complying with all of these new regulations. So one of our state representatives, Vicky Lopez, her district that she represents in Florida includes pretty much all of downtown Miami and all of Key Biscayne, which has, the vast majority of Miami's condos. Of course, we have a bunch of Miami Beach and up in Sunny Isles and north of there. But as far as like the city of Miami, most of the condos are concentrated in those areas. She did an interview at the end of June, and she recently said that so many of these condo associations are not ready for the 2025 deadline. And in case you don't know what I'm talking about, there is a deadline starting in 2025 where condo associations must get a reserve study done, and they need to now have full reserves in their bank account in order to comply with these reserve studies, which can be in the tens of millions of dollars. And a lot of these buildings have zero reserves right now. Oh, we got the leaf blower guy. Can't escape him. So this congressperson is talking about how, you already have so many sellers that are dumping their units at deep discounted prices right now to just get away from this problem. So her warning is, don't buy a condo in Florida at least until 2026, at least not for the next 18 months in order for this whole thing to get sorted out. And I think that's actually pretty wise advice, because the thing is, guys, a lot of the stuff you're going to come across right now, especially if it looks like a deal that's too good to be true, it's probably because it's in a building that is sinking financially right now, or maybe it's even physically sinking, or something really bad is happening. Now, in my last video when I covered some of these condo issues, I talked about the cricket club in Miami, and I showed you guys real-world examples of how much money people are losing right now because of the massive assessments that this building has. And the crazy thing is, those assessments are just to get the building up to snuff in terms of its physical condition. I don't even think it mentioned getting the building up to having reserves. So there could be even more money that this place needs to collect. And that's just one example of one building that has these problems. And so what's happening is we're seeing this situation where it's a race to the bottom. You have people dumping these condos that can't afford the assessments, and it's going to become a situation where you have the people that can hang on and their property values are plummeting because their neighbors that can't afford to hang on are selling at bargain basement prices just to get rid of it and take any of the equity they possibly can out of the place. But I think it's a smart financial move for a lot of these owners that are selling that really can't afford these assessments, because there are programs right now, for example, depending on your income level in Miami-Dade County, where you can get an interest-free loan to help pay for some of these assessments and things like that, guys. But the reality is, think about it, if you can't afford the assessment today, you're not probably going to be able to afford it tomorrow. But I do think those loans might come in handy for somebody who just needs that little bit of a leg up, like they're doing okay financially, but then they get hit with this huge assessment, and that's probably the only way they can pay for it. But if you're already struggling financially and you want to take on more debt to try and pay for this thing, you're probably just delaying the inevitable, and eventually you're probably going to end up losing your condo. Here's the part of this story that makes me think there's going to be some sort of deadline extension or exemption once 2025 rolls around. So when they talked to Vicky Lopez, who's a state representative in Florida, she said that 70% of the condo associations in her district, which is District 113, that includes downtown Miami and Key Biscayne, 70% of these condos have not done their structural integrity reserve study yet as of the middle of 2024, guys. And they only have till the end of this year to get this done and to start putting money away for this. Only 30% of all of those buildings have done it. And even when the rest of them do it, you know for sure that there's going to be some of these buildings that are not going to comply, and they are not going to meet this deadline and have this done by 2025. And what's going to happen? This is something I've been asking. This is a question that no one has an answer to. And all of the stories I've talked about with this, all of the research I've done on this, right now, as it stands, there's no what if. There's no what if they don't do it. What if they come up short? What if they can't comply? Is the state going to penalize them even further financially if they already can't afford it? That wouldn't make a lot of sense. But if they can't do that, or if they don't do that, what's the alternative? What do they do to ultimately force these buildings to comply with these new laws? There's nothing that says what's the next step if they don't. Right now, they're just basically saying you have to do it or else. Or else what? I don't know. I guess we'll figure it out when the time comes is the answer. And this is how crazy this is, okay? Just in her district alone, just downtown Miami, Key Biscayne, there's about 667 condo associations, right? And only 30% of them have completed their structural reserve studies by the end of June of 2024. This is bad, guys. This is going to cause so much financial pain for so many people that just aren't ready for this. And I'll be willing to bet that half of the people that own these condos don't even know about this yet. You know why? Because in Miami, who buys all these condos? Foreigners, people that don't even live here. They have second homes. They just buy it as an investment, and rent it out or whatever. They don't have a clue of what's happening with all of this stuff. They're not watching these videos. A lot of them aren't anyways. And they're going to get blindsided by this. So all these condo associations that haven't done their structural reserve study yet are kind of scrambling to get it done. But the thing is, these engineering firms are already so backed up with the work that they're already quoting people that they're going to do it in 2025, which is already past the deadline. So you're already going to have hundreds of buildings probably that are not in compliance with this day one when the new laws take effect. And that's the part that makes me think there's going to be an extension or some sort of exemption on this, because I just don't think they're going to throw hundreds or maybe even thousands of buildings throughout the state under the bus and put them even further in the hole financially, or make it even harder for these people. But you never know. But ultimately, this is why it winds back to the original advice of you got to be very careful if you're going to be buying a condo over the next year and a half in Florida, guys. Like, you need to be 100% sure that the building is ready for this, or they've already gone through most of the things they need to and they have the full reserves, whatever it is. Because if you don't, then you're just kind of buying into this massive money pit and you don't really know how much is going to be needed moving forward. Yeah, you can look at the meeting minutes like I say, you can look at the budget like I say to do, but ultimately some stuff might not be accounted for, especially if they haven't done their structural reserve study yet. And I also think that now that this is all getting closer, that one of my other predictions is going to come true with the condo market in Florida, which was that buildings that are safe and sound financially and structurally are going to retain their value much better than any of the buildings that haven't done this, and the older buildings that are just not in compliance. Those are going to be the places where you see the values of the units plummet because they haven't kept up with it. And the only real question mark in my mind is the big surge in condo inventory going to be enough still to bring down the value of these units that are in good financial and structural shape, or are they going to retain their value through it? my guess is they'll probably retain most of their value, because even though there's a ton of inventory, all that inventory is trash. They're all in buildings that are in dire straits financially and maybe even physically, and not many buyers want to step into that mess. I know I wouldn't. And so savvy condo buyers are going to be looking for buildings that are not in those dire straits, right? So even though there might be 10,000 condo units for sale, really only 2,000 are good buys in terms of the condition of the building, financially and structurally. So you might have all this inventory, but it's not something that most people will really give a serious look at, and it almost won't matter. That's kind of where I think this is going. Now, this is just a Florida change, obviously. This is a law that's happening in Florida, but I wouldn't be surprised if they start doing similar things like this in other states in the future. But Scott sent me this story from Reddit, and I want to read it to you guys because it has directly to do with the new NAR settlement and the new laws that are coming out with this, and someone's recent experience with things right now before this change even takes place. And this is something that could happen to anyone and can affect anyone. So it's something to pay attention to. I'm gonna read you guys the story and then we'll kind of analyze it, all right? And I don't think I'll read the whole thing. I'll just paraphrase it because it's a little bit lengthy. But here's what it is. This person wanted to sell their home, and they live in a very rural area. So there's not a lot of real estate agents to choose from, okay? So in the end, after interviewing some agents, they didn't like anybody. They thought they were unprofessional. They decided to list the house themselves and put it with one of the flat fee MLS brokers. And they only put out 1% as the buyer's agent fee, okay? And with the flat rate brokers, you basically pay the flat rate broker like $400, something like that. And then all of the commission that you're paying, the 1% in this case, goes towards the buyer's agent, whoever brings the buyer for your house. But after putting the property on the market, they weren't getting much interest, so they decided to go on Zillow and do a showing request and see what happens, right? And this is where things get crazy. It's also a good story that shows how little most home sellers and home buyers understand how these platforms like Zillow and Redfin actually work. So take a listen. They made the contact through Zillow to see their own house, right? They got contacted by a real estate agent. He texted them saying, "I have concerns about the property and I don't recommend it. Are you interested in seeing any other property?" The seller of the house called this person pretending to be a buyer. This agent said to them on the phone, "The seller is a greedy scam artist who cares only about keeping all the money to himself. Even his listing is sketchy with no seller's agent. It's a red flag." And this guy's basically telling the seller how broke he is and he can't even afford gas to go and show these properties or whatever. So clearly somebody that doesn't belong in the real estate business. Then he was going on with them even more, saying, "Listen, if you guys are interested in seeing this house or maybe buying it, then we're going to have to make some sort of arrangements or negotiation so that way he can actually make some money on this deal, because they're only offering a 1% commission." But this seller was furious once they found out how much this real estate agent would be sabotaging a potential buyer's interest in their home. And basically the guy was upset because they're only offering 1% commission. So this made the seller concerned to the point where they decided that they would offer a 2.5% commission to a buyer's agent. But they're worried now because they're saying, "Hey, isn't this illegal for real estate agents to do this? Isn't that what this whole NAR settlement was about?" Well, not really. You see, that's where people don't listen, guys. No one understands this. They hear about the settlement and they think, "Oh, well, that just means, I can pay whatever I want as a commission." Well, that's always been the case as the seller. You've always been able to pay whatever you want. But the difference is, are you going to attract buyers? Are you going to attract buyer's agents that are actually going to show your house is another story. Now, as far as I know, and I'm not a lawyer, guys, this is not legal advice, but from my experience in the real estate business, what this real estate agent is doing is highly unethical, but I don't think he's breaking any laws, okay? Just giving his opinion about a listing and expressing his concern of showing it just because they're offering a 1% commission doesn't break any laws. It does break a lot of ethical boundaries, and this seller could definitely make an ethics complaint against this real estate agent with the local real estate board. I don't know which state this is out of, but all states have a real estate board where you get licensed through, and the seller could make a complaint to that real estate board talking about how this person acted unethically, and then they would go in front of the real estate board once this complaint was made and be charged appropriately. Usually be some kind of a fine or punishment for acting like this, but they're not going to be serving any jail time, and they probably won't be losing their license either. But this story shows you a couple of things. It shows you, number one, how most people don't even know or understand what's going on and what this whole NAR settlement is about, because what it's about is, and the only thing that's changing now in the future, by the way, is that the seller's agent, the seller's realtor, whoever's listing the house, is no longer going to be able to advertise the commission that is being paid to the buyer's agent on the MLS. That's really the only change moving forward, other than buyer's agents also need to sign contracts with every single person that they show houses to from now on. So as a buyer, you need to sign a contract with an agent before going to see a house after August 17th. That will be a non-negotiable. But those are really the only two big major changes. And this seller thought, well, now that this lawsuit has taken place, then I don't really have to pay anybody, right? And they're both wrong, okay? The seller was wrong for trying to offer such a low commission and thinking that people were actually going to be interested, right? So they decided to raise it to 2.5%. And you can keep it at 1% if they wanted to. Just don't expect a lot of real estate agents to show your house. And there's no obligation for real estate agents to show your house in this situation either, by the way. But also the real estate agent was wrong for basically steering clients away from this listing because they were not paying the commission that he deems to be acceptable. So as far as I'm concerned, both parties in this transaction are wrong. But just imagine, guys, like this settlement hasn't even been finalized yet in terms of the date, right? It's all taking place after August 17th. And we're already seeing problems like this crop up before it's even finalized. Imagine the type of problems we're going to see after it's finalized. I think you're going to see so many more stories like this. It's going to be crazy, of agents not wanting to show houses because the seller's not offering a commission, and then the seller is either going to give in like this person did and offer a full commission like before, or they're going to have to just completely go it alone and try to sell it on their own. And if they're in a highly desirable area where houses are selling fast, it's probably going to work out well for them. If they're in an area where inventory is rising like wildfire right now, it's probably not going to work out too well. But really, I think both of these stories just highlight how little most people know about what's going on right now. A lot of these condo owners are clueless on the hammer that's about to drop on them if they're foreign or not paying attention to what's going on. Obviously, they'll be getting the new bill. A lot of them probably already are, and seeing their HOA fees jump through the roof, but they probably don't understand why this is happening. And I think a lot of these out-of-town condo owners are going to be the ones that all start dumping their listings onto the market sooner than later, especially since it's either an investment property or a second home, because they don't need that place, right? Unlike somebody who lives in the unit, that's probably going to try to fight and keep it as much as possible because it's where they live. And then at the same time, you have all this confusion with the NAR settlement and people not knowing how this works or what to even expect from it because they're just not doing their own research. They're not getting the information. You know, I've done my part here on this channel to try and put out videos regarding both of these topics, but you see, even my best videos, guys, maybe get a few 100,000 views. I've been lucky enough to get a couple that got over 1 million, which is awesome. That was always been a goal for me here on the channel, and I've passed that. You know, most of my videos maybe get like 150,000 views, maybe 200,000 views, stuff like that. And that is a lot of views, but it's nowhere near as many people that probably need to see stuff like this. So make sure if you know somebody that might need this information to share this video with them. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here. And I'll see you in the next one.